Welcome to Ayurveda and Spirituality with your host, Alakananda Ma, a renowned Ayurvedic expert and a graduate of a top London medical school. She is the principal of Alundi Ayurveda Gurukula, a unique apprenticeship-style school in Boulder, Colorado. She is a spiritual mother, teacher, flower essence maker, and storyteller. Join us as we uncover the timeless principles of Ayurveda, discover practical tips for enhancing vitality, and explore the deeper dimensions of spirituality that intertwine with the ancient science of life. Today on the podcast, we are sharing a recording from the archives.
Seeing each one of you inseparable from baby Krishna, I come to you as your loving mother and most humble devotee. Welcome, my baby gods. So our topic tonight is about spirituality and your work life. And in many ways, this is a uniquely modern topic because of what we have done in our industrial and post-industrial era with the nature of work. Until even very recently in Ladakh, work was a very holistic activity. So people gathered together each day and they took care of their fields together as needed. And as they worked, they sang songs that had words like, "Easy does it, take it easy, don't push yourself too hard or you'll get tired." And they sang these songs about taking it easy, and they worked together. And then when they were done with the farm work, the women would gather together and they would do amazing weaving and make clothes, or they would do their threshing, so that the people's work was part of a sense of community and was integrated with the earth and the cycles and seasons and with their daily life. And even in Europe, prior to the industrial era, people didn't have to go to work. The whole family would either take care of the fields, the animals, or they would be a family of artisans or craftspeople, and they would all gather together, and throughout the day, they would perform their work. So you didn't have to drop your children off at the babysitter to go to work, because helping out was how the children learned. From living with a 2-year-old, I've seen how natural it is for children to do what we do. The 2-year-old will do the sweeping and cleaning like she sees us do, and then since her mother runs my Ayurveda clinic, we'll find her with her toy phone. She's sitting there and she has a little pencil and a little book and she's setting appointments for clinic. And then she notices that we get a lot of satisfaction out of our ceremonies. So she'll be down there in the temple and she'll be putting ghee and laying the sticks in the fire pot and going, "Swaha, Om, Swaha," because that's what she sees us do, so she copies it. So she's learning the work of the ashram, and that's how children used to learn and apprentice. So until very recent modern times, we didn't have an issue in the same way about work, because work had this holistic and family and community sense. It never used to be something you just went and did for money. I know at least one person in this room that does have to go to do a job that they have to do for money, and maybe some of the others of you feel you have to do that too. And that's the kind of dilemma that this talk is really trying to address. It's also very much a phenomenon of the age of Pisces, which we've just been living through for the last 2,000 years, which was an age of splitting. There's the two fishes swimming in opposite directions. And so during the age of Pisces, we've tended to split things or pull things in different directions. So during the age of Pisces, spirituality became monastic. and the world became divided into monks and lay people. So the monks were pursuing a spiritual life in their monasteries, and the lay people were engaging in worldly life. So this is already the beginning of a split between work in the world and spirituality. Actually, in fact, the monks in the monastery had to work too. And when I was a young nun, many times I thought that my success in being a nun depended on my biceps, how much I could develop my muscles. I gardened 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, moving molehills and digging up cabbage stumps and building crazy paving and moving logs, because that was what nuns did, manual labor. And to quote from Bhagavad Gita, Nahi kashit kshanamapi jatutishtyata karmakrit karate yavasa karma sarva prakriti jarguni niyatam kuru karmatvam karma jayo hya karmanaha sharirayatra picchate na prasidyata karmanaha, which is saying that there is no one who exists without action, or no one who exists without work. Everybody has to work. Even they have to do things that they don't want to do, because the gunas of Prakriti, the very qualities of our material nature, make us work. Even if we think we're not going to do anything at all, we're still breathing, which means we're transforming oxygen into carbon dioxide and water through the Krebs cycle in our cells, which is work. We're still excreting. We're still metabolizing. So just by being alive, we actually have to work. So then, Krishna says, so just do your duty, for action is better than non-action, and you can't even maintain your body without action. So even when you're in a monastery, actually there are beekeeper monks and cook monks and cabbage stump digging novices, and in the old monasteries, of course, there was a scriptorium because there was no printing press. So the educated monks spent hours every day making Bibles, writing them by hand, copying from one to another. So there was still work going on, but because you are defined as being a monk or a nun, that work has a holy feel, like you're making Bibles or you're tending the monastery garden. You're still in that holistic sense with your work. Now the lay people, who now are of a lesser order than the monks, because the monks are now striving for perfection, and the lay people merely for salvation or for escaping from rebirth into the lower realms. So for the lay people, their work is just ordinary work. And so throughout the age of Pisces, we're beginning to make the separation between the spirit and the world. So somehow we're seeing it as an obstacle or something lesser when we have to go to work in the world, and especially when we have to put on a business suit or business dress and go to work in a high-rise building that we have to drive to in a car, and then we have to work at a computer and a phone, and we have to clock in and clock out of our job, and you have only so many days of vacation or sick leave. Whereas people in the Middle Ages had holidays. They didn't have summer vacations, but they got to go on pilgrimage, and they had holidays all the time. Every Saint's Day they had fairs and festivals. Now it's very much packaged up. I was reflecting on this and wondering when, at any other time in history, were people so miserable about their work. I was thinking, well, maybe if you were a slave under Ramses or under the Assyrians, and you had to do hard forced labor, you would be miserable about your work the way that many people that I meet or that I see in my clinic every week are miserable about their work. In other words, the scrape we've got ourselves into is, other than being enslaved or doing forced labor or being indentured, we're making ourselves about as miserable about work as we could. Because work is meaningless to so many people. And particularly when you get into the corporate world, there's actually a soul sickness that is deliberately induced within the corporate world. Because what the corporate world is really about is about getting people to work really hard so that someone else can actually profit from your work. Even if you think you're doing well and you're getting all this like stock options, like I have some of my in-laws work for Quest Communications and other like big communications corporations in Denver, and they're constantly sucked in by their job because it's going to make them all this money, which means then they'll be able to retire from their job, which they hate. But the fact is, someone else who isn't working is making a lot more money from their work than they are. So I've noticed that the corporate world, it induces this soul sickness by these very superficial rewards and punishments, carrots and sticks. So you get tickets to the ball game, or dressing down Fridays, or you get to go out to lunch with your whole people on your team once a month if you make your goals. Or these like very superficial rewards, often things that people don't really want, but you're made to feel that you do want them because it's made to seem like your life is going to be a little easier if you work hard enough to get these rewards. Or then if you don't work hard enough, then you would get written up, or suddenly you realize your company is about to let you go because they've given you a bad evaluation even though you're doing a good job. This kind of behaviors help to induce this soul sickness in the corporate world because it's so external. Like, even if you're working in Whole Foods, great, I'm working in a health food store in which half the food is actually not even organic. And as the person goes out, you have to say, have a nice day and thank you for choosing Whole Foods, or whatever you have to say when they go out. And you have to smile. You can't not smile because you're in a bad mood, because it's part of your job that you have to smile. So you can't be real. Or even if you work in Starbucks and you're only getting $5-6 an hour, 30 hours a week, no benefits, but you have to smile. And you have to say, thank you for choosing Starbucks, and all the things that, would you like a so-and-so, and all the exact scripts you have to say, right? And there are secret shoppers that go around and make sure that these poor kids who are working for $6 an hour actually had the coffee up in time, and it was at the right temperature, and they said all the right things that they were supposed to say, and their uniform was clean enough. And you've got to be really skillful for your $6 an hour to get all these pieces together fast enough. The corporate work world is reflective of the whole paradigm that we've created in the age of Pisces, which is now starting to decay from within, with the sense of patriarchy, women hit the glass ceiling, right? Patriarchy and hierarchy and a dominator mode. So another thing about the corporate world is bosses. You have your boss, and then your boss's boss, and then your boss's boss's boss, and you're somebody's boss. It's very, very hierarchical. Whereas when we work at Alandi Ashram, there aren't any bosses. Well, I don't have a boss. Sadananda doesn't have a boss. Nobody really has a boss. We're all hopefully pulling together as a team, or if not, at least you don't have a boss over you. You understand the difference? part of what makes it such a eroding situation is because you're trapped within this hierarchy where nobody actually genuinely cares about anyone, because in the end it's about the bottom line. I hope this isn't getting too depressing, but this is kind of the picture of the way in which so many of us are going to work. Even when we think we're working in a pretty good place, like Whole Foods, it still is part of this patriarchal, hierarchical situation. It still runs on the profit basis. And at tomorrow's talk we'll be talking more about the impact that money and the economy has upon us. So given that we've created this situation for ourselves that is really quite harsh, and every year people have to work harder for less benefits. You know, we might think the standards of living are improving, but actually people have to work harder and harder. In India, before the industrial era really hit, you'd go to your morning temple round, you'd have your bath in the river. About 11 when you were ready, you'd open your shop, you'd make some sales, then you'd have lunch, take a siesta. If you'd made enough money in the morning, you wouldn't open up again in the evening, and if you still needed to make a bit more money that day, then you'd open back up again in the evening. People didn't have to work so hard because they didn't have to pay for their DSL and their health insurance and all these, and the kids' college fees and all these things we have to pay for, and we have so many gadgets that are supposed to save our time, but actually we're not saving any time. Before I had a computer, I didn't have to spend any time checking email at all, but now that I have one to save my time, then I have to spend all this time checking email, and the more email you check, the more emails people send you, and it just goes on and on and on. And then you have to have more and more and more things in order to keep up. Like I found this from running a small non-profit. The more things that everybody has, the more technology and the higher standards you have to meet just to be professional enough as running a small non-profit. So it keeps getting upped and upped and upped, and how hard we have to work and how little we get out of it continues to be raised. Ultimately, as long as anyone works in Haiti for $1 an hour or $1 a day in lousy conditions, one day everyone will have to, because that's how the outsourcing phenomenon keeps happening. So, given that many of us may feel throughout our lives, or sometimes in our lives, in some way trapped in work that isn't meaningful to us, or in relationships to our work that don't seem meaningful, how could we work with this? Ultimately, we have to change the whole paradigm. Okay, so ultimately we all need to be striving to fulfill our purpose, and actually we as human beings brought in the industrial era and got ourselves trapped as slaves to the machine, and we're actually capable of freeing ourselves from slavery to the machine and getting back to a holistic life. So I think that's much more important as an ultimate vision. But in the meantime, we're here, we're in Chicago or wherever we are, we have to live our life, we have to pay rent. As one woman was saying yesterday, I'm so scared of becoming a bag lady. That's actually a genuine fear for many a middle class person who is one paycheck away from the streets or less. A lot of people habitually live in their overdraft protection. So a lot of people are actually one paycheck back from the streets. You know, like you never quite make your bills, so you always borrow money to make your bills, and it just kind of, then you're always like a month or two behind. So even the idea you're one paycheck away from the streets isn't really real. So given that so many of us actually right now in today's world, somehow we feel we have to make it in this work world, being the way it is there a way that we could relate to that? Is there a way that we can make our work a practice? Well, first of all, in order to make our work life part of our spiritual practice, we have to have a spiritual practice. Okay? Otherwise, it's like if I want to play Bach on my violin, but I won't do scales and arpeggios. Because if I'm not going to practice my scales and arpeggios on a daily basis, there's no way that I can play a Bach sonata. There's no way that I can improvise a beautiful cadenza if I don't practice my scales and exercises. So if we want to have our work life be practice, that actually does begin that we have to do the scales and exercises. And so we have to take that time out each day to actually sit and meditate. So I'm just bringing this in as first of all, that's like a sine qua non of making our work life sacred, is first of all to have a regular practice. If we don't have a regular practice, it's going to be extremely hard to engage in spiritual practice within our work life. That means getting up that hour or at least that half hour earlier before work to set aside a little bit of time, if not an hour, at least half an hour, to set aside at least that bit of time to come into ourselves before we go out into the world of work. So that's kind of the ground that I'm more or less assuming. If we're making our work part of our practice, that we have a practice to make our work part of. If not, we need to start there with square one. Otherwise, we are, as Sadhananda always says, wanting to want. We are would-be spiritual practitioners. And then we wish that we could bring our spiritual practice into our work life, but if we don't have a spiritual practice, we can't bring it into our work life. So that's the first step, that I'm more or less assuming that we're taking that time out within our day to sit, to be quiet, to be with ourselves, to practice. Then, having some sense of practicing, now how do we bring our workday to the path? There's really 4 different aspects within which we can bring our workday to the path. First of all, and I'm using a bit of Buddhist terminology or Buddhist thinking here, there's a Hinayana, or a lesser vehicle or Theravada way of bringing our workday to the path. And that it begins, if you want to do it this way, you've absolutely got to have that time, at least half an hour in the morning when you're meditating. I'm practicing Vipassana. I know there's Vipassana that's at this yoga studio, so that's a wonderful thing. When we're actually becoming aware, taking some time to cultivate awareness and mindfulness, then Hinayana way of bringing our workday to the path is simply trying to stay mindful throughout our workday. At a very, very rudimentary level of mindfulness, that means actually knowing what you're doing while you're doing it. Actually knowing when you're closing the door, actually knowing when you're sitting down, knowing when you're standing up, knowing when you're speaking. Actually just noticing what we're doing. Very much as during our yoga practice, we were trying to bring body, breath, and mind together throughout our workday, actually noticing what we're doing. That's the most rudimentary level. making it a little more refined, aside from just being aware that I'm closing a door, I'm moving the mouse, or whatever we're doing right now. The next part is actually being aware of what is the state of my mind. So throughout our work day, our mind is constantly moving in attraction and aversion. That was a lousy cup of coffee. It wasn't hot enough. I really want that donut that they brought up for the birthday party. It looks so sugary and yummy and good. I hate that person. They're so mean to me. I don't want to do that assignment. I wish I could get a date with her. She's so cute. Our mind is constantly moving in this attraction and aversion throughout the day. That's the exciting thing about being at work. Because it's pretty easy, in a way, it's sort of easy to just sit on your cushion and meditate. I mean, it's not really easy, but it's relatively sort of easy to sit on your cushion and bring attention to your breath, to your flow of thought, to your body sensations, depending how you're practicing your meditation, what your objects may be. It's a lot harder to be aware of our movements of attraction and aversion amid all the display and all the pulls and pushes and the fast speed of work life. So that's where we can get a lot of spiritual benefit from our work life, because it's a good challenge. Whether it's work life in the office, whether it's work life at the ashram. There was a photographer came in one time from the Boulder camera to do a photo shoot of me cooking in the kitchen, because I was going to be in a Ayurvedic recipe article. So she's filming me, and I'm cooking two different dishes at once. I'm kind of stirring things with two different hands, and meanwhile the phone is ringing, and people are walking in and out and asking me questions and wanting this and that, and all this is just turning around, and the photographer's like, wow, that's amazing, you can do all these things at once. Why could I do all those things at once? Just because I got up in the morning and did my sitting, right? So now I'm enjoying the distractions, so to say, of the day, the challenges to my state of mind that are coming up. So whether it's in the ashram, whether it's in the yoga studio, whether it's in a corporate office, whether it's in a school, whether it's in a grocery store, it doesn't really matter, in the sense that whatever it is an opportunity to be aware of how my mind constantly moves into, I want this, and I don't want that. I want to get this, and I want to get rid of that. Just being aware of these movements and seeing if we can find like a balance point somewhere within ourselves where we're almost like not getting totally pulled by these movements of I want this, I don't want that. So that's one simple way to practice in our work life. Actually, meditation is practice. Sitting meditation is practice for life, which is when you get off your cushion and you're dealing with this, juggling all these balls at a faster and faster speed. The moment we lose awareness, we drop the ball. What happens when we drop the ball? We yell at someone, or we're sharp, or we forget something, or oftentimes I realize I dropped the ball because I just let someone push me around again for the 1,000th time. I dropped the ball. If I was right there, if I was really aware, I would not have let that person get away with that. But because I wasn't really aware, maybe I wasn't aware of my own aversion to conflict, right? So I let them get away with it again. I did it again. My goodness, I constantly do this. When we're learning to juggle, we're going to drop balls. It's okay. You can even notice afterwards, what did I do? I wasn't with it right then. I let it go. I lost it. We can also approach our workday in more of a Mahayana way, whereas the Hinayana, or the small vehicle, which could also be called a precise vehicle, focuses on noticing what we're doing, noticing our attractions and aversions. The Mahayana is focusing very much on compassion. So another way that we can approach our workday is through the qualities known as the four immeasurables. Can we bring loving kindness into our workplace? To me, that is the most marvelous thing about doing anything. Like something that's really generally mundane, like going to the bank. Okay, if I go to the real bank, if I go to the ATM, there's not a whole lot I can do because the ATM is just a machine. But if I go to the real bank, then the actual teller in the real bank is, guess what? A human being. But that's so amazing. They are an embodiment of baby Krishna, an embodiment of the self, an embodiment of Buddha nature, whatever you want to see it according to your own heart. That person that's standing in front of you, telling you that you can't get your paycheck cashed today because whatever, is a human being. You can, just for a moment, extend loving kindness from your heart to this human being, and you're going to make their day. I absolutely make a point when I'm on the phone with someone who works in one of these huge, awful corporations that you have to, you wait 5 minutes before you get to talk to them on the phone, and then half the time nowadays they're from India anyway. Extend a little bit of loving kindness. I remember one time that my DSL went down really badly, and this woman had to talk me through reinstalling the entire modem. So she's like on the phone for me for half an hour, and I'm like not very techno. So she's on the phone for me for half an hour saying, you click here, or you do this, you do that. And at the end I just said, okay, it's working. Thank you so much for being so patient with me. Her day is just made, because I didn't just treat her as a way to get something done, but but she was really patient, and she was really nice. And we just went through something together on the phone, just by extending a little bit of loving kindness to someone. Not only is it making your workday more spiritual, it's making their whole life better, because they just got some love, they just got some appreciation. As well as extending loving kindness, extending compassion. That means genuine compassion. There's something known as idiot compassion, which makes us get sucked into people's manipulative trips. And I'm not talking about extending idiot compassion, which makes us overgive. We know we're extending idiot compassion when we really deep within us feel that we're being martyred or we don't want to. When we're extending genuine compassion in even a very small thing, you feel a sense of greater spaciousness opening up in your heart. Not to say that in a sense you want to do it. You don't want to be the one that jumps up and runs and gets that. You'd much rather sit there. We're all innately lazy. But when you do be the one that jumps up and goes and does it, it feels good, rather than you feel like, so that then you know you're being manipulated by that person when you feel you close down more and more every time you respond to their cries for help. But just extending genuine compassion means truly wanting other beings to not suffer. Whether it's getting that spider out of your bathtub before you take your shower. Come on, spider, please get on this sponge. Please get out of the bathtub. I'm not trying to kill you. I just don't want you to drown. Whether it's getting the spider out of the bathtub, or whether it's taking on an extra assignment because, someone else, their wife was just sick, or they're having a bad day. Extending compassion, that's another of the immeasurable qualities that we can bring to our workday. Bringing what's known as equanimity or peacefulness to our workday. Could we be the still point of the turning office? Could we be the person that actually takes a breath? It doesn't get into the copy-driven faster and faster and faster world, which actually doesn't get anything done faster. You know, they have a phrase in Latin, festina lente, hurry slowly, and that's translated into English, more haste, less speed. In India, they say it directly, hurry slowly, hurry slowly. If we have that sense of hurrying slowly, by just allowing ourselves that second to take a breath, that's bringing deep peace or equanimity to bear to our workday. Or why do we have to get so upset about things? A lot of the time, it's not really worth getting so upset about. If it's not really a matter of life or death, but our reptilian brain always thinks that it is a matter of life or death, so we have the word deadline. And which means you cross that line and you're dead. That's trying to induce a sense of life and death about every assignment because it's a deadline. But it's not really life or death. You have time to take a breath. At least one breath could be taken. And then you could start hurrying to do it. So taking that one breath is bringing that sense of the immeasurable, of deep peace into your work life. Finally, can we bring into our workday that sense of mudita, or sympathetic joy? If we could bring mudita into our workday, we could cut the rottenness out of the corporate world. Because the corporate world, the rottenness of the corporate world, is all based on the sense of competition and jealousy. Right? Only one person's going to get that promotion. 10 people are going to be let go and let it not be me. Oh, why did they get a raise and I didn't? A lot of the soul sickness that is so invasive about many, many workplaces is because it's based on the cultivation of jealousy and competition. That's what keeps it all going. Mudita, or sympathetic joy, means I am happy when somebody else gets what they want. Welcome, welcome. Mudita is a sense of being able to rejoice when good things happen to other people. So if someone else has a birthday party and it seems nicer than the birthday party that was given for me because maybe they're more important than I was, instead of fuming and stewing about it, if we could just feel happy and rejoice that, oh, they worked so hard and now they actually got paid a little attention to, then we're really helping ourselves in our workday. So probably the most important of these 4 immeasurable qualities that we could bring into our day, especially if we're working in an office or in the corporate world, is that sense of sympathetic joy, or finding the place in ourselves which feels happy when good things happen to other people. Remember, these are our innate qualities. So it's not that you've got to try and, oh God, that's so lousy that they got that and I didn't, and I'm going to make myself feel good about it. The fact is, there is a place deep in your heart that does feel good when good things happen to other people. And trying to touch back into that place will make your workday anywhere, whether it's a corporate office, whether it's a yoga studio, wherever it is, your workday is going to feel better when you touch into that sense of feeling good when good things happen to other people. And it can be really subtle. I've had to work with this myself a lot. You always feel that you're such a great person, and then suddenly realize that for years you felt really bad that all these other people are more successful than you, even though you're really good at what you do. Time to practice some mudita and feel happy in those people's success. And when you practice mudita, you don't have to feel, may I be unsuccessful and may good things come to these other people. You can feel, may I receive everything that I need, and may these people receive everything that they want, and may I feel happy about it. So that's kind of a Mahayana way that we can approach our workday. Then, tantric way to approach our workday. Tantric way to approach our workday. Now you have to spend some time on these other levels before you're really capable of approaching your workday in the tantric way. Approaching your workday from a tantra standpoint, a diamond vehicle standpoint, means you've already gotten familiar with noticing when your mind is mad about the cold cup of coffee or really wants to get a date with whoever or whatever. You're already noticing how your mind is moving. You're already gotten in a habit of extending 4 immeasurables throughout your workday. Now, can you really dive in to the whole play and the whole display and the whole speed and the whole drama of your work life? That's tantric approach to your work life. You more or less actually at this point are intensifying the drama of it. It's very much at the ashram, a lot of the time, the way that a day goes by, especially around me, because I'm a drama queen, right? So I've learned that the only way I can really deal with my emotions is to intensify them to the utmost, totally get into it. I am so mad about this. Look inside, look right in. What is anger? I get to the point where I'm totally mad about this. Okay. Split second, pause. Look at it. And then keep going. Get what I'm saying? Your work life offers all these vistas of, first of all, just being aware of your own mind. Then, what can you extend towards others? And then ultimately, when you've really gotten good at playing in those 2 rings, getting into the 3rd ring of the circus and just really dive in and really go with it, get things up to a pitch and go right into your own mind. If you just get things up to a pitch, you'll burn out. You have to be able to take it to a pitch and then look with it. Who's feeling this? It only takes a second. But in the Tantra approach, you're really working with... Tantra doesn't mean G-spots. Everyone understands? Tantra means you fully work with the world of the senses and bring every aspect of it to the path. So you're fully engaged with your passionate nature. So at this point, you're playing your workday passionately, with passionate intensity, because you already know how to watch your mind. And then you can afford to play your workday with intensity. And of course, one 4th way that we can bring spirituality to bear on our workday. Kim karma kim makarmeti kavyapi atra mohita tatya karma pravakshami yajnatva mokshase shubhat karmano hyapi bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha akarmanascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gati karmanya karmaya pashad akarmani cha karmaya sabbuddhiman manushasho sayukta krishna karma krit yasya sarve samarambha karma sankalpa parvitat kama sankalpa varjitah jnanati dagda karmanam tammaho panditam buddha. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna gives amazing teachings that seem completely designed for the post-industrial era. Because many people at that time in India to whom he was speaking, low-caste people and women, have that sense of not being able to choose that we have when we have that sense that we have to go do that job that we hate because we've got to support ourselves, we've got to feed our family, or we've got to pay for our kids' college, or we've got to pay for the college that we already had. We have that feeling. Many people to whom Krishna was addressing himself at that time have the same feeling. They live a life that's in many ways choiceless. So Krishna says, I'm not tainted by action because I don't desire the fruits of action. And anyone who understands me is not bound by actions. So in ancient times, people did action because they knew that they couldn't be bound by their action. What is action? What is inaction? The poets even, the poets are the makers of scriptures, even they don't understand it. But I will explain it to you. We have to know what is action, what is karma, it means action, what is vikarma, what is defective action, and what is akarma, what is inaction. We need to understand all of these. Now this shloka is very, very precious to me. The one who perceives the inaction within action and the action within inaction, such a one is truly wise among beings. This is the yogi and the one who performs all actions. He who has excluded desire and motive from all his enterprises has burned up his karma, which also means his action, in the fire of knowledge, and now is truly called a sage. These verses are precious to me because for so many years I personally, in my own mind, could not get it together. I went from one extreme to the other. First, being the junior doctor who works 80 to 100 hours a week on the ward, which means you start work at 9 o'clock on Friday morning, you get off work at 5 o'clock on Monday afternoon, and you may or may not get an hour of uninterrupted sleep within that. And you've got 2 wards in coronary care and intensive care, and everyone's life is in your hands, and you're only 26. Other extreme, and you have an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old nurse on each ward that you're watching over, that's supposed to be taking care of all these patients. Swung from that extreme, of course, to being in the abbey and digging up cabbage stumps, which is supposed to be a life of not working, but it was actually really hardest physical labor I've ever done in my whole life. Personally, this topic that I'm talking about, I couldn't get it together. I could not see how contemplation and action could come together. And one day in India, I had a dream where this shloka of Bhagavad Gita was chanted. The one who sees the action within inaction and the inaction within action, that is the one who is wise indeed. And suddenly it all came together in my mind. Since the only I within me is Atman, is the Self, is the Lord, since there is no other I, no action is performed by me. Did you get it? There is no other I. There is no one performing actions, because there is no other I. When I really examine, there is no other I. And that which is the only I is not a performer of actions. So there is no action performed by me, because there is no other I. Whatever is being done by the gunas of Prakriti. The nature is having her own flow. And to get a little bit into Ayurveda, within Ayurveda I'm a Pitta, means as a Pitta person, we like to be busy. That's the way we are. We're doers. My definition of a good day is I got a lot done. If you're not a Pitta, you won't understand this. Your definition of a good day was I had a lot of fun, I met a lot of cool people, or, well, I had a great nap. As a Pitta, my definition of a good day is I got a lot done. So that's my nature. The nature that's working within my body, mind, etc. is going to engage in a lot of activities that are going to be very knowledgeable and do activities that seem really important. They're not really important. It's just nature being nature. That which is truly the only I that is I-ing me is not acting. Is this making sense? This is really the ultimate level. We have the precise vehicle, the broad vehicle, the diamond vehicle. Ultimate level of seeing our workday is nobody goes to work. You never went to work. You never went to work today at all. Nobody went to work. Simply the work got done. I'm sure you did a great job. Nobody went to work. Nothing ever really happened. It isn't even really important. When I was in the Abbey, means I had completely dropped out of life for a year and a half. The astounding thing was that the whole world got along fine without me. So what? When you're there, it's as if nothing could get through 5 minutes without you. But actually, one day I'll be dead. This body will be dead, and everybody will get along perfectly fine. Nothing will go wrong. The sky will not fall down. I did not need to hold the sky up. Ramana Maharshi describes this approach to work when he talks about, I think it's Ramana Maharshi, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it might be Ramakrishna. Anyway, there's a man who's on the train, and he's sitting on the train and he's holding his suitcase on his head. And the conductor comes up to him and he says, "Look, you're on a train, put it on the luggage rack." So we think that we have to hold this suitcase on our head. But actually, if you put it on the luggage rack, you don't have to hold the suitcase on your head to have it arrive at the same station as you. Or Ramana Maharshi talks about the caryatids, at the bottom of the temple. They're carved on the temple, holding up the temple. But of course they're not doing anything. The temple is standing up on its own pillars. They're simply giving an appearance of holding up the temple. So in the end, we all feel that we're holding up the whole world. We're so busy and we go work so hard. Nothing's actually happening. The ultimate level of relating to our work is portrayed in Bhagavad Gita. Simply, it says, don't crave the fruits of your action. Now that doesn't mean, I remember when I was a young doctor and for the first time in my life I was going to have a paycheck. And the first of the month comes and I'm like, I wonder where my paycheck is. And eventually I go up to someone, remember I'm English, and I say, is there something that I have to do to get paid? And then I realize you're actually supposed to go to the bursar's office and ask for your paycheck. I have to ask for a paycheck? It's not meaning that you shouldn't get paid, because that's just like part of the exchange. It's the attachment of our mind to the fruits of our actions. You can want the project to succeed. You can try to have the project succeed. You can get your paycheck, but ultimately you have to understand that no one is doing it, that nothing's really happening. So the ability to be unattached to the fruit of our actions is actually a very high state of gyan, of actually recognizing why are we unattached to the fruits of our actions? Because everything in the whole world is ours already. Because there is no other I than the Lord, than the self, than the Buddha nature, whatever you want to call it. There is no other I. So that's the basis of our ability to be unattached. So that's 4 different levels of ways in which we can relate to our workday as practice. And maybe you could even be excited to get up tomorrow and go to work because you can try out some skills at work, wherever work is. The meditation practice is literally the practice. It's sitting down, doing the scales and arpeggios. And if and only if we do that, then we can go and play this music, this cadenza that we extemporize moment to moment. That's our daily life. So the practice and then the daily life goes hand in hand. And ultimately, we're all learning to do it. It's still all practice, so most important, don't beat up on ourselves. It's inconceivable to me how many, it's both inconceivable to me how many balls I actually don't drop in the course of the workday. It's also incredible how many balls you do drop. How many times you just weren't right there with examining the state of your own mind. And there's always a consequence. Because someone just got away with whatever it is again because I wasn't really clear in my own mind. Don't beat up on ourselves. We're here to learn. I know it's late because we only started at 8 and...
I have lots of questions, but I think it's fair to ask because...
Please go ahead. Don't worry.
Maybe something you've already explained.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned about the tantra and how when you have already your mind is clear, then you can use all the senses.
Mm-hmm.
And how is that? And can you say just a little bit more about that?
To say a little bit more about
A
that?
little more about that and how you can use your senses and your passion. You said after your mind is clear.
Right.
Thank you for tuning in to Ayurveda and Spirituality with Alakananda Ma. We hope today's exploration has ignited a spark of curiosity and insight within you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and share it with a friend. For more enlightening discussions and practical wisdom on Ayurveda and spirituality, subscribe and join our Facebook group, Alundi Ayurveda. To allow us to continue sharing valuable content, consider donating to Alundi Ashram. The links will be in the show notes. Until next time, may you walk the path of Ayurveda with grace and embrace the light of spiritual wisdom in your journey. Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivadanam urvarukamiva pandanam mrityormukshiyamam